Hello everyone, this is little me. I am back with another video. So this is the final video for tonight, and at some point in the future I will do another video. What I'm actually thinking about doing is going back to doing my oracle for the month and also my tarot card for the month, so that should be a lot of fun to do, and I really want to get back to doing it because I haven't done one in a couple years, and I really want to get back to doing it. So in today's video, I am going to be talking about cultural appropriation and when it applies and when it doesn't apply, and I'm hoping that people will understand what I'm getting at. This might be a two-parter, I don't know. I really hope it isn't, but it just means I'm going to have to allow videos longer than 15 minutes because I don't like the idea of doing them in parts, because then people lose interest and all that type of stuff, and I really want people to understand where I'm coming from. So cultural appropriation is a term that has come about the last several years, probably more than several years, probably the last 10 or 20 years, and it's basically defined as taking from a culture that is not your own and either not crediting that culture or not understanding what you are doing. The most prime example of non-cultural appropriation is eating Chinese food or eating Italian lasagna. Those things everybody enjoys, and the cultures that they come from, they set up Publix, they set up restaurants where they serve a wide variety of different people. Also, despite what people believe, you can, if somebody from a culture doesn't mind, like for example, there's an article that I read where her aunt did henna, and she's part of the culture where henna comes from. I don't remember which one it is. And either it was the niece or the granddaughter did not like the idea that either her aunt or grandmother, like I said, I don't know if it's the niece or granddaughter, was painting henna on non-ethnic people. And the aunt or grandmother, one of the two, could not understand why their relative felt this way. And this is a prime example of someone trying to tell a member of a certain culture who can have henna and who cannot. So my belief is, yes, cultural appropriation is bad, but when you start dictating to a member of your own family what is appropriate and what is not appropriate culturally, that's when you get my ire. Respect your relatives, please. They know a lot more than you do. So what most people may not know about my heritage, and I'm not saying this because, I just think it's really cool to have some Native American blood in me. My grandmother was half Cherokee, truly half Cherokee. Her mother was full-blooded Cherokee, and her father was white. So her mother, my great-grandmother, was around when President Jackson ordered the Trail of Tears. And my great-grandmother had issues. I never met her because she died way before I was even born. But she had, I'm going to be guessing she had psychological issues because of it. I mean, heck, who wouldn't? She fled, and she ended up marrying a white man and integrating into European culture or white culture. However, my grandmother was very anti-white. She looked at the white man as the reason that she was deprived of her heritage, and even though my grandmother was a Bible-thumping, believing Christian, she also took pride in her cultural heritage. So when I go and see people having spirit, say, oh, I have a spirit animal, or I have a spirit guide, or I do sweat lodges, or I smudge with white sage, which was denied to Native Americans for a very, very long time. There's a YouTuber named Elia Kai who is full-blooded Native American, and she said that as late as the 1960s, you could be arrested as a Native American for practicing your religion. Native Americans weren't even declared U.S. citizens until the 1920s something. So I understand, as somebody whose great-grandmother was pulled out of where she had known all her life, and her and the others were forced to go to reservations and try to integrate into white society and things like that. This is why I'm just against cultural appropriation. My brother doesn't understand it, but I do. So we talk about cultural appropriation in neo-paganism and Wicca. There's actually a really detailed paper that I came across. It's like 88 pages. It's a PDF file. And basically she talks about why cultural appropriation is so prevalent in the neo-pagan community compared to other places. And she touches a lot on Reconstructionism and on different things. So when we talk about cultural appropriation, we're talking about when you appropriate symbols and words from what is known as a closed culture, like Native Americans. Now, there are people that you get adopted into Native American tribes, and they're taught all these different things, and so they do have the right to use those traditions because they were adopted into the tribe. So when we talk about closed cultures like Native Americans, or we talk about, there's a group of pagans in Russia that definitely has a closed tradition. They have suffered through Christian persecution, through talk about militant anti-theistic government that was prevalent in Russia at the time. And the fact is they're still around and they're still practicing their religion is absolutely amazing. So a lot of people do not see any problem with taking from different sources and using them to produce their own practice, which is why it is called eclectic. So there was a section on it about closed cultures and about sometimes inadvertently appropriating symbols from other cultures because you really don't have that much to work with. For example, if you talk to any Reconstructionist, they will tell you right off the bat that, especially if it's Celtic, that there really isn't a lot of information. Yes, you have a ton of archaeological finds and things, but you don't have hymns. You don't have lists of what if incense was used, what kind of animals were sacrificed to these deities. You don't have that information. And so when you're trying to reconstruct a religion that you don't really have a lot to go on, you appropriate from different cultures, or you will take from another close culture, or you'll look for similarities and you'll draw from that. And that's what I do. I look at, like, I'm really into the Celts. I dedicate myself to the Celtic path, but even I know there's really not a lot. So you have to look at other cultures where everything was written and say, okay, The Romans had shrines, the Greeks had shrines, the Egyptians had shrines, so obviously the Celts had shrines. So you draw from that. And then, of course, you have Ogam, which is a Celtic form of divination, and you draw from that because historically that's accurate. But one of the things that troubles me is when the term cultural appropriation is thrown around to signify anything. Okay, so there's Celtic Wicca, for instance. And Celtic Wicca is considered a form of cultural misrepresentation, which is also another name for cultural appropriation. Basically, you are appropriating a dead culture, and to a lot of people, that's not right. Well, I hate to break it to you, but it's only cultural appropriation when it is a closed culture and not a dead culture. Dead cultures, they don't really, I'm pretty sure they probably wouldn't have gave a damn, personally. But also the thing about it is that it doesn't fit the definition of cultural appropriation. What it does state is that you have a bunch of people who create a tradition of Wicca that has Celtic deities and Celtic mythologies, which is free for anyone to use. And you are trying to say that even a dead culture can be culturally appropriated. Well, culturally, I'm a Celt. Culturally. Ethnically, I come from the places the Celts lived. Germany, Ireland. There definitely was Druids in Scotland. I believe they were known as the Picts. I'm not sure. But when I go and see people practicing Celtic Wicca, I don't get upset and angry at it because the Celts as a people, pre-Christian people, no longer exist. And it wasn't due to a bunch of white people coming down and subjugating a bunch of non-white people. It is an empire that came in and subjugated another society, but they all had the same skin color, and they all had, so it's not like the Europeans came in and subjugated the Native Americans now, and then later on uses their symbols because it's exotic. Now, that's cultural appropriation. But I think we really need to understand what true cultural appropriation is and not just slap the label on anything. Now, if you are in Japan and you're taking part in a festival and you're allowed to wear a kimono, I have no problem with that because you're over there and I'm over here and all that jazz. But we also really have to look at, are the people that is the culture is being appropriated, are they really angry about it? Or just like with the niece/granddaughter, is it only you that's being upset about it? So anyways, cultural appropriation is bad. It brings a lot of really nasty histories out. But if it's a dead culture, then it doesn't apply because you want it to. But as I said, cultural appropriation is a bad thing. It should not be allowed, but it does happen. And we have to address true cultural appropriation and not what people want cultural appropriation to be. So I'll see you guys around. Bye.